Welcome to the Game Changers podcast, bringing you insights and influencers from the wide world of sports, business, and personal development. Here's your host, former professional athlete, author, speaker, and game changer himself, Rennie Curran. It's time to get your head in the game.
What's going on, world? Welcome to the Game Changers podcast. I want to first start off by just telling you thank you so much wherever you're at right now for just listening and tuning in. For this show, I wanted to spend some time just talking about the draft process. As you all know, this past week was the NFL draft. So much happened. A lot of good choices and decisions were made by the different teams. But for most of y'all who are listening, 9 times out of 10, you will probably never ever get to experience what it's like. And so I wanted to share with you my experience on draft day. What it was like. I want to share some lessons that I learned, some lessons that I now see as I watch the NFL draft on the other side of my dream now that I've retired. And just, give you that inside scoop. And by the way, if you guys didn't know, I actually made the beat that comes on in the introduction. So I am a musician as well. So if you like that beat, I got plenty more. So you can check me out. I just opened up a little account on BeatStars, I think it was. So, I'm a beat maker in my spare time. I play the piano, play the drums. But anyways, let's get back to the NFL draft topic. So for me, draft day 2010, it started out like most days. But the only thing was it was like Christmas. I knew that on that day, it was like April 23rd, 2010, that my dream of playing in the NFL was going to come true. And at this time, I was in my parents' house and sitting on the couch, and I thought about leading up to, that moment, because everybody gets to watch draft day, everybody watches the combine, but not everybody gets to see all the moments leading up to that time. Just the training that goes into it, the amount of discipline, the amount of time that you put forth to just perfecting your craft and making sure that when you show up, to the combine and to these different, the pro days and to the different events, that you're ready to perform and you're ready to showcase to these teams that you have what it takes to be an NFL draft pick. So that's first and foremost what you have to think about when you think about draft day. And when I see so many guys crying and shedding tears and all that, I know what they're thinking about. I know they're thinking about just how much work went into that moment. How many times they heard no, how many times they had to struggle. A lot of guys are from tough backgrounds, single parent homes. They're from Section 8 sometimes. I mean, just all types of different situations. And to get to that moment, man, it's everything. And so for me, like I said, I was sitting in my parents' room, living room, back home where it all started. Had a couple close friends around. But most of all is my direct family. All the people who have been there for me through thick and thin, all the people who were with me long before I ever put a jersey on, long before I ever walked on a practice field. Those were the people who were closest to me. And when it came down to it, when it started, I really didn't know where I was going to go. I didn't know if I was going to go to, play in Florida and Dallas and Cali. You go through the combine process and you do the interviews, but at the end of the day, you have no clue where you're going. And so I had interviewed with San Francisco and with the Titans, but ultimately, it could have been anywhere. I had a couple teams that called me beforehand, before the draft started, to kind of give me a heads up. One of them being the Indianapolis Colts. But at the end of the day, it's like you really don't know what decision they're gonna make especially once the draft gets started. So on that day, I'm sitting there and the draft starts. Roger Goodell comes up and he announced it. You're watching on TV. You're sitting there, and all of a sudden the names start flowing, just as you saw this past weekend. I saw offensive linemen go, QBs go, running backs go. Some of the guys in my class were like Tim Tebow, Rolando McClain, Sean Witherspoon, Brandon Spikes. Notice I remember all the linebackers' names because those are all the guys who went ahead of me. But yeah, so most of the guys you're happy for and you're excited that they've been drafted because those are your boys. You're fired up. And then on the other hand, you got some guys who just pop up out of nowhere. I don't know what it is, but every single year the draft comes up, there's some, guy who hasn't been on the radar. ESPN ain't talked about him. Mel Kiper or whoever the specialists are have not talked about these folks at all. And all of a sudden, for whatever reason, they become household names overnight, just because ESPN or whoever the draft expert is at the time says they are. And it's crazy because coming from the SEC or Pac-10, and when you play in these top conferences, you expect to go high in the draft. You expect to be just looked at as a certain caliber player. I mean, as you look across the league that there's players in your position, there's players who played at the same schools that you played against or played with that are now in the NFL and now dominating things. So when you see a guy who's coming out of Idaho or just a random school that you never heard of and you never heard of him, it's just kind of like, dang, well, shoot, how is this dude getting drafted ahead of me? Really, when you're sitting there, it makes no sense. And so that was part of my experience as well, just sitting there kind of looking at guys who, like I said, came out of nowhere or seemed to come out of nowhere, just get drafted ahead of me. And I'm just like sitting there like, man. And that's when that stress starts coming, that pressure starts coming, because it's just that moment of uncertainty. You realize you have nothing in your control. You've put the work in. You talk to your agents. Your agent has done everything in his power, or so he says he has. And now you just got to wait. And so for me, I did not get drafted that first day, which I knew I wasn't going to get drafted. But got to the second day and, started getting more phone calls. Heard from Indianapolis coach that they might take me in the second round. And, got to the end of that day and I'm sitting there, gets to that second round pick, and Roger Goodell comes up to the podium and he says, with the 36th pick of the 2010 NFL draft, second round, Indianapolis Colts select Patrick Angerer from Iowa. And I'm just like, wow. So you mean to tell me like they really called me and told me like they might draft me, or they're thinking about drafting me in that position, and it's completely went a different way? Like, and in my mind I'm thinking, why would you even call me, or why would you even get my hopes up? And still to this day I have no clue like why they made that decision or what was going on in the draft room. But all I know was like I was crushed. And luckily for me, as the day went on, I knew in the back of my mind that I was slated as a second and third round pick. So I just continued to be patient, continue to just wait, look down at my phone. I mean, that's just imagine like 6 hours straight, just looking straight at the TV, looking down on your phone, you waiting for a random phone call. And so pretty much by the end of the day, the second round came and went, the third round came, and my heart just kept beating fast, kept being stressed. People were texting me, asking me, Rennie, you been drafted yet? And Rennie, have you been picked up? And I'm just like, nah, man, nah. Like, you're gonna know. Trust me, you're gonna know. And so that was part of it too. Just people reaching out that want to just be in the know. That they don't really care about where you're going, but they just want to know, if you got drafted, you didn't get drafted, or whatever. Or some of them just don't even know anything about the process. So by the end of that day, that second day, I was about to shut down. Like I said, it was about 6 hours in. And finally, probably like with two more picks left in the third round, right when I was about to head in for the night and about to just call it a night, got that phone call. My phone started ringing. It was a 615 number, and I answered the phone. And on the voice on the other line was a guy by the name of Jeff Fisher. Jeff Fisher was the head coach of the Tennessee Titans, and he said, "Man, Rennie, I know you've been waiting for a really long time, but I want to take the opportunity to welcome you to the Tennessee Titans." And I'm just like, whoa, just my whole life flashed before my eyes. And he passed the phone on to the defense coordinator, Chuck Cecil, and he passed it on to their general manager and so on and so forth. And I just remember, just having flashbacks after that moment. I mean, after I got off the phone, I looked at my mom and my sisters. Everybody was shedding tears. Everybody was crying. And just like saying, man, Rennie, you worked so hard for this. Like, we've been through so much. And I looked up at the TV screen, and Roger Goodell was just announcing my name. With the 97 pick of the 2010 NFL Draft, the Tennessee Titans select Rennie, linebacker, University of Georgia, and it was nuts. I mean, I don't even really know how to explain it to this day, but it was one of the best feelings in this world. And as I look back down at my phone after my name was announced, I mean, I had never seen my phone go so crazy. I mean, it looked as if my phone hit the jackpot. Like, I had probably about 200 to 300 text messages within a minute. And my voice mailbox went from empty or like maybe one or two to automatically full within like 5 seconds. So my phone I thought my phone was about to explode. And just a crazy experience, man. But what was so meaningful and so impactful, like I said before, was just when you think about in those moments, in that moment, of just how much you had to go through to get there. For me, I was a guy who was considered undersized, so I was not supposed to be in that position. I was not supposed to play at Georgia. I wasn't supposed to play in the NFL. And so to get there and to feel that feeling of just excitement and that feeling of just finally making it, man, after so many years of struggling, after so many years of hearing that I was too short, after so many years of just waiting on a break or just seeing my family struggle, seeing my mom struggle, seeing my dad lose his business and bounce from job to job, to now know that I had an opportunity to change things for my family, man. It meant so much. And as I watched the draft this past weekend, that's all I kept thinking about was these guys who, I compare us a lot of times to Willy Wonka in the Chocolate Factory because we're all like little Charlies. We're all those guys, those kids who got that golden ticket, maybe to play D1 and even more so to go to the NFL. You really are like a Charlie in that movie. I mean, 9 times out of 10, you're the only person in your whole entire community, the whole entire existence of your family to get drafted. I mean, I saw a couple situations where brothers got drafted and where cousins got drafted or a guy whose dad played, but 9 times out of 10, like 99% of the time, it's going to be a situation where a guy gets drafted. He's the first person in his whole entire existence of his family to reach that type of opportunity. And so when this happened for me, I mean, so many things changed. And one of the biggest things was you basically become a CEO overnight. You become the CEO of your own company. So it's no longer a game. Like, you realize quickly, once your name is called, that week following, like, you working. I mean, you automatically get flown into that facility. You automatically are getting your equipment. You're in that professional mode. So the time for you to really celebrate and just be in awe and kind of be like, oh, I'm so happy that I'm here and I finally arrived. All those little moments that you have are short-lived because you got to go to work. You got to get in that facility immediately and start to show them like why they brought you there in the first place, why they drafted you. And then at the same time, you have to prove yourself. You're still a rookie, even though in the outside world, you're now on this certain level. When you walk into that building, all the accomplishments that you had before, nobody really cares. No matter what college you went to, or how many accolades you had, whether you're All-American all the time or whatever, it doesn't matter. You automatically have to start back at the bottom. Unless you're a first round draft pick, you know that you're kind of walking in and you're a guaranteed starter. But if you're, I'd say about third round and below, especially if you're a free agent, you definitely have to be in that mindset where it's like, look, I'm going in here to prove myself, and you have to earn your keeps, and that's the mentality you have to have. Typically, you're going there, and you have a guy who's starting ahead of you, so your biggest thing is to get in there and compete, of course, and make sure that they're not, by the time that year's over, trying to replace you or trying to cut you or trying to get you out of there. And so that was a big part of my experience when I first showed up. And of course, I celebrated, I had family come over. I had the cousins, the uncles and everybody who popped up. Some popped up out of nowhere, but we won't talk about that. But overall, that's how the experience was for me. And I thought about not only those who got drafted this past weekend, but I also thought about those free agents who didn't get drafted, because that's one of the toughest things when you go into this draft. When you're sitting there, I mean, I can't even imagine. I was drafted third round, and that was still the most stressful, one of the most stressful moments of my life. But I can't imagine if I thought I was going, third round, fourth round, and I didn't get drafted at all, or I didn't get drafted into the fifth round. And that happens every year, to so many guys. And for whatever reason, it might be a coach who says something bad about them. It might be an injury that a team discovers. It might be something that like an incident that happened that puts a negative light on their brand, that holds them back. You just never know. And I think about that all the time. And what I want to say to those free agents, to those guys who didn't get drafted, is to, number one, just keep your head up. Understand that where you start is not where you're gonna end. Where you start is just it. I mean, that's it. It's a starting point. It's not the end all be all. It doesn't have anything to do with your career or where you're gonna ultimately head. Of course, it's gonna be a tough route. It's gonna be a tough hill to climb. But at the same time, there's been so many free agents who've overcome just those challenges, and made a great, amazing career, coming from nothing, coming from being that underdog. And a lot of times it works out because as a free agent going in, like, you can't get comfortable. You have to have that chip on your shoulder at all times. So for those who have a great deal of mental toughness, for those who love a challenge, then being a free agent can be a very motivating position to be in, because really you got nothing to lose. Worst case scenario, you're going to be back home. The next thing I would say to those free agents, and those who have gotten the shot of getting a workout, those who haven't yet, is to keep working on yourself. Keep working on yourself. Even if that team doesn't call, even if that team hasn't, shown you any type of interest, just continue to work on yourself. And that means not only working on your craft as far as football goes, and working on your drills, and you're perfecting your craft, but also off the field, away from the game. What are you doing after those workouts? Are you just going home and you playing video games? Are you just going home and you're watching film all day? Or are you starting to build your life after? Are you starting to network? Are you starting to connect with businesses? Are you staying connected to your college? All those things matter as far as what you do while you're a free agent, because you can really use that as a time that you really take advantage in multiple ways. Not only staying in shape and, like I said, staying in tune with your game and with your just craft as an athlete, but also as a future business professional. Because as we all know, the game is gonna end. It doesn't matter if you play in 10 years. It doesn't matter if you play 15 years. It doesn't matter if you like Ray Lewis and play 20 years. Like, you think about the greatest players that play this game, the Michael Vicks, the Peyton Mannings, whoever. The game ended at some point, and now they're regular people. Some of them have been able to maintain that prestige and the fame and everything that they built while they're playing, but overall, like, your brand value is going to diminish. So you definitely have to take advantage of the platform that you have, like, while you're playing, and make sure that you're continuing to work on yourself. And that brings me into some lessons that I learned just from watching the draft, and just from my experience as well of just playing in the NFL as a whole. And I wanted to leave these lessons with you, besides the lessons I just gave to the free agents. The first lesson from the NFL draft, and from just the overall NFL experience, that I believe translates not only to sports, or if you're an athlete, but also to business, entrepreneurship, to leadership. Understanding that nothing is guaranteed. Nothing is guaranteed at all. As I said before, there are guys who thought that they were going to get drafted high. There are guys who thought they were going to go second round, third round, and they didn't get drafted until the fifth round, or they didn't get drafted at all. And so, understanding that nothing is guaranteed, you have to ask yourself, how am I going to respond when adversity hits? How am I going to respond when life doesn't go my way? How am I going to respond when my back is against the wall? When you can accept and embrace that nothing is guaranteed, I feel like it gives you that much more control over the situation. Like, you're not letting your emotions spiral out of control. You're not allowing, the outcome of a situation to determine your motivation. And so remember that nothing is guaranteed. And in the league, that's the first thing you learn when you get on that team. For me, I went into the Titans and I was thinking, man, I'm gonna get here. It's gonna be an amazing career. They drafted me third round, so they're gonna at least keep me for 3 years, before they even think about bringing somebody else in. And lo and behold, right after I got drafted, the lockout happened. NFL, my coaches, they ended up getting fired in the NFL, and the new staff came in, new regime. They brought in new draft picks, and just like that, things changed overnight. So I quickly learned that lesson that nothing was guaranteed at all. And even while I was a free agent, I spent about 6 months, 7 months as a free agent, and times would come where I would think like, man, this is it. I'm probably not going to get picked up. And then a week later, I get a call from a team. So even failure isn't guaranteed. Failure is never guaranteed. There's always an opportunity. There's always possibilities. And that's both, can be both good and bad, if that makes sense. The next lesson that I kind of learned from the NFL draft and the overall experience is that it doesn't matter where you start. It doesn't matter where you start at all. It's all about where you finish. It's all about what you do with opportunities that matter. And that's a lesson that can be applied to so many areas of life. Because whether it's in school, whether it's on the job, whether it's in family, whether it's in relationships, we can easily get in a place where we feel like, man, like, this is it. Life is over. I'm not going to be able to overcome this situation. I'm not going to be able to recover. Like, I've been down for so long. I hear so many people say, oh, I'm too old now. Oh, I failed at this so many times. Oh, this is too hard. You cannot be focused on, where you started or what your current situation is. You have to be focused on your vision. You have to be focused on the future. You have to be focused on future opportunities. You have to be focused on future relationships. Just so many lessons can be learned, or so many ways that this lesson can be applied. So remember, it doesn't matter where you start, it's where you finish. That's one thing I always tell the guys, when they're going into the draft. And now that I've had the experience of going through it and seeing on both sides, like guys who got drafted fifth round, guys who got drafted as free agents and are now having amazing careers. Like one of my buddies, Donnell Ellaby, a guy who's a free agent who ended up playing with Ray Lewis. I mean, the fact that he was a free agent and got an opportunity with the Ravens was probably the biggest blessing of his life. The fact that he was able to go there and learn from one of the best linebackers in the league. I mean, wow, like what more could you ask for in a situation like that, where it seems to be down, but ultimately it ends up being a blessing in disguise. And that's the beauty of life, is you can start at the bottom, but that bottom can end up being that platform that you need to propel you to the top. And I mean, that's, when I think about that, it's like you're never at a loss. It's all about your perspective. It's all about how you see your situation. And so that's what some of the things that I try to tell guys when I'm talking to them, whether they're going through the draft or whether they're in that position of being a free agent. I'm just like, look, bro, like, man, it's you got so much more life ahead of you. You got so many more opportunities. Like, don't think that this is it. Don't think that this one opportunity is going to be the end all be all. In football or no football, understand that you're going to be successful no matter what. The next and final lesson I kind of take from the draft and from the NFL experience is the fact that you will be rewarded in public for what you do in silence. You will be rewarded in public for what you do in silence. And that's such a powerful lesson, such a powerful principle to live by, because especially this day and age, we're all about being rewarded in public. We're all about numbers. We're all about being on a big stage. We're all about getting that validation from others. That validation that comes from how much money we have in our bank account, or the validation from a promotion, or the validation from just being recognized as a whole. And a lot of times we're not willing to do the work in private that leads to that. When we look at so many people in a society, we look at companies, we look at people with great personal brands, we look at people who are in a high position in life or have high social status, and we look at them as that finished product and just think to ourselves like, man, how can I get there? Like we're trying to compare, we're trying to figure out like how can we be in this position of greatness? How can we be on that big stage? And a lot of people think it just comes overnight, and they don't realize that long before this person has been on the stage, long before this person put out a platinum record, long before that person sold a best-selling book or had a movie that is in global demand or whatever, that for many, many, many years, they were working in silence while nobody watched. They were working in silence while nobody believed. They were working in silence while they didn't have a dime or they didn't have a bed to sleep on. Like they put that work in, they paid the dues, and now they're reaping the benefits. And it's like, it's so easy to look at these people, like I said. So don't compare yourself. Understand that whoever you see in that position of greatness, you better believe that they are putting in some serious work in silence. When those cameras are off, when you're not seeing the Instagram posts, when you're not seeing the different things that they're doing in the public or their interviews, or you're not seeing that movie, you're not seeing that album come out, understand that they are in the trenches. They are putting in the work. And that's the mentality that you have to have. You have to be willing to work 3 times harder in silence, in the morning while everybody's sleeping. You have to work 3 times harder than you do when you're at that award show, when you're at that place of success, or you're at that moment when your name's being called on the TV screen. So I think about that. I mean, it took me from when I started playing football at 10 years old, it took me 11 years to get to the NFL. I was 21 years old when I got drafted, and that's typically how long it takes. When you look at if it's in the business world, becoming that top entrepreneur, if it's in the acting world, acting, entertainment, actor, singer, whatever, it's typically going to take 10 years plus. Like, there's not one person who you're going to see that's a true expert. I mean, unless they're a one-hit wonder, which we all know is not sustainable. But there's not one person you're going to see who's in that position of success that has not put in a serious amount of time, serious amount of dedication, has a serious and impactful and effective team behind them. That's another thing is, when I got drafted, just like when an actor gets signed to a part, or a singer gets signed a record deal, or anybody who achieves a high level of success, man, the first thing you hear them talk about is their family, the people who gave them everything for them to be in that position, the people who believed in them before they even believed in themselves. For me, that was people like my parents made so many sacrifices. My coaches made so many sacrifices. My little coach, Ronnie Benton, would pick me up every single day for practice. I had trainers that would let me train for free. Guys like Chip Smith, Ryan Golden of Gaddis Sports. Body by George, so many trainers I trained with, man. They just helped me out. They blessed me. People in my community, some of my teammates' parents who would help me out, give me $20 here, give me $40 here, so I can get something to eat or so I can go to the movies. Like, it was a struggle. And so I had to have that team behind me. But just remember that last lesson, you'll be rewarded in public for what you do in silence. And I just want to give some advice to those draft picks. And this really goes out to anybody who's recently been given a new opportunity, whether it's a job or whether it's a new relationship, whatever it is, because I feel like this applies to all of that. The first lesson or first advice I have for those draft picks or those people who have gotten new opportunities is to go into every year like it's your last and never get comfortable. Never get comfortable. I talked about that earlier in the show. The fact that once you get drafted, or if you're in the workforce, in the real world, once you get picked up into that job, they start giving you those paychecks, you're already on the clock. They're already evaluating you. They're already seeing how you're responding to getting this money. They're already seeing how you're responding to this new lifestyle that you've attained. And so my biggest advice to you, man, is to never, ever get comfortable and treat every year like it could be your last. That means in the way that you conduct yourself on the field. That means off the field, making sure that you're saving your money, making sure that you're living in a way that if you were to only play for 1 year, that you'll be able to sustain yourself and you'll be able to move forward and have a successful life. The next thing is use that jersey, use that position, use whatever platform or job you have for leverage. And what I mean by that is don't just look at that sport or that job or that opportunity that you've gotten as the end all be all. A lot of times I see athletes who they get on that team, they start getting money, and that's it. Like that's all they do is football. They locked in. I see people in the workplace. All they do is they get that job, and for 10 years, 20 years, that's it. Like they locked into the industry. They don't network outside of the industry. They don't build a personal brand. They don't do things necessary to protect themselves in case they get cut, fired, whatever you want to call it, or if there's a disruption in their industry. And let's say if it's like, I love the example of just like Airbnb or even like, man, what's the car service? Uber. So we got Airbnb, we got Uber. There's so many taxi drivers and so many other industries that were affected just by one simple innovation, by one app that was created. And so I know it's a random example, but this is a great one in terms of just being proactive, in terms of understanding industry trends, in terms of staying ahead of the game like you got to. And one of the ways that you do that is by building your personal brand. And by, when you have opportunities to add in new certifications, when you have opportunities for any type of continuing education opportunities, to make sure that you're acting on that. The next thing, and another advice for those who have found a new opportunity, who are moving forward, is to just be proactive when it comes to that transition. Be proactive when it comes to continue to develop yourself. So this kind of goes back to what I said about leveraging your jersey or leveraging your position. It's just, for me, after I got cut, probably after 3-4 months is when I started becoming an entrepreneur. I told myself that I can't wait for somebody to give me a call. I can't wait for somebody to give me an opportunity. I can't wait for somebody to say, yes, Rennie, we have a job for you. No, I told myself that I'm going to create one. If nobody's going to call me, if nobody's going to, give me another chance in the league, I'm going to make sure that I'm in a position to create revenue. I'm in a position to provide for my family. Like I have a 9-year-old daughter, so it's like, am I just going to wait and hope and call and beg? Nah, like I had to get to work. And so that's what I did. I started going to career transitioning programs. I started networking and meeting with other business professionals who were in positions that I saw myself. I started just getting to work on leveraging the skills, the talents, the experiences that I had. And that's when I decided to write my first book. And that got me on the journey to doing what I'm doing now. So that's the last piece of advice I have for those draft picks, or for anybody who has just gotten a new opportunity. Go into every year like it's your last and never get comfortable. Use that jersey or that position that you're in for leverage, and be proactive when it comes to transitioning. And then just to recap the lessons from the NFL draft, there were the fact that nothing is guaranteed. It doesn't matter where you start, it's where you finish that matters. And then lastly, remember that you will be rewarded in public for what you do in silence. So that being said, that wraps up my show for today. Thank you so much for listening and for tuning in. If there's any students, athletes, business professionals out there who I can help in the areas of career development, entrepreneurship, in the areas of personal branding, please feel free to reach out. My website is renniecurran.com. That's RennieCurran.com. I'm excited to continue to give you guys great content, great lessons. Next week, make sure that you tune in. I'm either going to do a podcast on personal branding or entrepreneurship. It depends on the guests that I'm going to be trying to get on and if they can come on or not. So make sure you tune in, guys. And for all of my dogs, I got to give my dogs a shout out too. All my dogs who were drafted, especially my boy Roquan Smith going, I think it was number 8 overall to the Chicago Bears, Isaiah Wynn, and Sony Michel to the New England Patriots, which is crazy. Who else? Lorenzo Carter going to, where did Lorenzo go? I think he went to the Giants. I mean, yeah, the Bulldogs really held it down in the draft this year. Those guys have amazing futures ahead of them. That's the thing that I love most, is the fact that these aren't just great players, but these are great men as well. So I'm fired up to see like what they're gonna do, what they're gonna accomplish in their careers. All the free agents as well, Davin Bellamy, and plenty others. Jeb Blazevich, who else? Trent Thompson. I mean, all the free agents, guys who didn't necessarily get drafted where they thought they're gonna go. You heard the advice I just gave, not only to you, but the rest of the free agents. To just stay hungry, stay ready to dominate, and understand that it's just the beginning. It's all about what you do when you show up for that opportunity. But guys, with that being said, last challenge I'm going to leave with you is to be a game changer. Thank you.